Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, we're going to continue on finishing up this Western painting here. What I've done is I added a little bit more light color to the rocks here, and my left brain, my darn left brain. You know, those of you that suffer from, like me, that you're very logical, we make pretty good teachers, but boy, we go into this left brain and we'll tend to level off and equalize, just like I leveled off these two rocks here. So I want to make some adjustments to this one. I want some more undulation, variations in the sizing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to work on those just a little bit. And I put a little bit more onto the dog here and I ended up lightening his face just a bit more, but I like his presentation so far. And some of the reflection here. And I added some of the initial colors here to the Herefords. How much I'm going to do back there, I'm not really completely sure. I was even thinking maybe bringing one in here this way, facing back this way, which I've talked to you before in other Westerns. I create this circle movement within a picture so that if this guy's looking this way, this little cow comes back this way and turns you back into the design. However, that kind of violates what I originally thought about this, of making you wonder what is it they're all going out there and looking for. These guys turn you back just a little bit. But something to think about, you know. And like I said, I was sitting there going, man, I could make this a nice sunrise or sunset and stuff. That would be really nice too. Lots of variations for you. And hopefully it sparks your creativity a little bit. Couple of things that I had one of my students that asked me just about that reflection thing again. Reflections, how the actual reflection looks, you just can't take everything that's here and show it up here, especially because I've raised them up slightly from the eye line here. Okay, so I just briefly mentioned it in the other video. And so, you know, I put a little blue down here, which in reality, you're going to see a lot more blue because the actual water line here is so high, the reflection's coming from the water line. Imagine that sitting out like this. And so it's looking up this way. So if the viewer is here and the water's lower, the water's reflection is up at a higher angle than what the viewer is seeing. So, and what happens to that? What happens is the height of the scene in the back compresses down. And likewise, if it was reversed, it would change. So what really happens is the sky comes lower. And I went out and I found this photo of it, which kind of shows it here. So see, here's like, if we put this up through here, okay? Now you see our water line holds right in here, right? And so here's our subject and here's our subject. But since the water is down closer to, the actual drawing here is closer, the subject is actually up higher. You see this fence and all of these trees and stuff that are back here behind this lady? They're not reflected. Do you see that? They're gone. It's only reflecting the grass that you see right here because the angle of it is a little bit different. So that's what makes reflections so hard. So when you're doing a painting and doing something in let's say you don't have a photo to study or look from, sometimes reflections can be very, very confusing. So, but you can go out there and grab other ones that'll help you. So in reality here, I'm going to reflect down. So, it's like the lady's head. See, this is what gets so darn confusing here. Behind the lady's head here is a fence. Behind the lady's head here is the sky. Does that make sense? So it's very different. Does that make sense? But it's hard, but it has to do with the angle. The water down here reflecting is at a different angle than what you are looking at it. And so generally, if your subject is a little higher, your sky is going to come down a little bit more. So remember what I said in the video. I'm putting this stuff in back here, but in reality, it probably wouldn't be there, but you would expect to see some of it. So I'm just going to do it. So what I'm going to do is just put in a little more white to the horse in the reflection here, and I'm going to put in a little more blue sky here, and blur it all up. I also want to add some transparent water, some smaller rocks, all that kind of stuff. So I have quite a bit more I want to add to this painting, just because it's going to be fun and I want to keep this painting. So we'll do that. And one of the other comments that I had was, yeah, it is that his leg is off, and I understand that. But those are things. It looks like here on the cows and stuff, I don't have them perfect yet. I won't worry about all of that stuff until I get the grasses in. Does that make sense? I got to get the grasses in the ground. So we'll start with some of that, but we'll work with some of that. So what I want to do is I'm just going to start out this morning, and always give yourself the ability to change. And like I do with my paintings, I don't approach my paintings all the way, and I may have perspective off or something like that a little bit. Those are things. I left a little paint in my brush, so I'm just going to take it out real quick. Little hand sanitizer takes that color right out of your brush. So I don't always worry about that yet, until only when I start to really work with the more details. Does that make sense? So I'll get some stuff off and I'll go back in and correct it. But there are some things I want to do. So I'm going to take a little burnt sienna, some yellow, some burnt sienna, a little bit of green, which I really like. I want to add more green. I've got everything very, very warm. So I want to add some more greens and some blues and stuff like that into my painting. But I want to take this rock down here a bit and change this up. So see, so it adds just a touch more. And this is this thing. I create a line. Look at that beautiful line that's right there. And so I'll soften this out just a bit. Maybe take this one back a bit. Make this one even a little smaller. Maybe even a touch more jagged, a little blue, a little burnt sienna. But these are the kind of things I look. So I start to get, what I concentrate on is getting color and movement and stuff in. And then sometimes the actual drawing, the marks of the drawing, I'll work on later on, if that makes sense. I don't worry about it too much. You can. Everybody's different. And I'm not saying this is the best way to approach it. I'm just saying this is what I like to do when I approach it. So I'll take some of that out of there now. Boom, back that back out. I'm going to put some greens and some other things. My final rocks and everything that I do, though, I can't really think. Because, see, that's just a little clump of rocks. That's my left brain again. And so I want to change some of this and get some of this in there. And we're going to work a lot on the ground and fix up some of that stuff. So, but I don't worry about it now, if that makes sense. Now, let's go in and let's do a little bit of the drawing and stuff for it. So I have, and also when I go do the ground, I have lots of photos of cows out on the prairie, which I really like. Matter of fact, I use this guy right here to help just kind of set that one right there. But I love all of these greens and other colors, and then the big long prairie grasses and stuff up here to the front. So, and I love this one here with different cows and the big long prairie grass. And this is why, if I'm going to set in all these big long prairie grasses like we have out here in Nebraska, we're in the short grass prairie, but the grasses get very, very big out here. Just leave town just a couple miles and you'll see. It's going to cover up some of your drawing and stuff. So I don't worry about getting it absolutely perfect right away. But let's go back in and let's start adding a little, and I'm going to use a small bristle brush. And this is a bristle brush that we make, and it's a small one right here. And there's all different kinds of ways. Like if you want this, and now it's an older brush, but it still has a pretty good chisel on it. But they're not expensive brushes. And I had one student say, well, can you make like an angle brush or something like that? I'll show you. It's really easy to make an angle brush. This is what they do in a paint factory, is they just start chipping it away like this until you get, and you can use and you can make yourself an angle brush just like that. And if it's too thick, you can always chop up, take a razor blade, run it against the edge of the ferrule, and then you'll get whatever you like. So if I use an angle brush like this, which I don't use very often, very, very seldom, I take my old brushes that start to go like this, and then I run a razor blade against the ferrule and then chop it off at an angle. And you know, one thing about the angle brush that's really nice is it's great for drawing. So, you know, he had on his reins and stuff that I rode him with, stuff, he had an ear loop here that went around, and I don't want it to be perfect. I'm just using the edge of the I'm going to add just a bit of extender to this so it flows a bit better. You could use water as well. And we'll do the throat part right down here like this. And I want this broken. That's why I'm using the bristle. See the broken line? It makes it look almost like it has a little highlight or something to it. So I use the broken part of it. And let's put I rode him all the time with a curved bit, but my wife always rode hers with hackamore and stuff, but I like a curved bit. And I'm going to drop some of this down here. And I'm just going to give the impressions of it, okay? Nothing too precise. Just a little bit here, but I don't want the lines to be perfect, okay? I don't want the lines to be perfect. Let's just drop this right on down here. Boom. Just like that. A little broken line, see? A little bit of a broken line on that. I think I'll widen this throat latch out a bit here. One of my hobbies became, after a few years of building all of the tack that I used to ride the horses in. Loved it. I never built a saddle, but I loved building the tack. And so we'll push just a little bit in there, okay? And I'll give the little curve bit here, we'll use a little more blue and a little more white. Makes almost a silvery color here. And there we go. We'll use this. Just model this up onto the brush. And again, I'll just put a bit of this, just the idea of it. That needs to be a touch lighter here. And maybe even just kind of tap that around a bit here, there. And, you know, buckles and stuff like that you're going to have up here. And a little bit of a color, then pick up just a touch of the white. Highlight it a bit. You can drop in a little shadow. I don't want to get too involved with it, though. You know, it's just an idea. And I'm going to let him free rein here, so we'll just pull down here. Give a little wispy, like there's a couple of them there. Just down, just like that. Just let just let it dangle there. I could do this with him and he would always stay exactly where you put him. He was a great horse and he loved to ride. We always say he loved to go for a bye-bye. He loved to do that. And I'm just going to add a little more light. There we go. A little shine to that. Not too much, just a little. I'm not going to make it perfect detail or anything like that. Let's go down over here to the saddle and stuff that we have here. As you can see in like the photo with that Martha had that I showed there, one of the blankets that I had all this red in it that we rode with and stuff. So I want to put a little bit of the red on the edge of the saddle blanket here, just to get that a little closer to what we did. A little bit of a gray, lighter gray. We had a gray. I rode him in a gray saddle blanket with red trim. I love that. He looked great on him. So I'll put a, I remember this stuff, so I just add it. You can make whatever you want. And these are the kinds of things that make a painting even more special, you know. So a little bit. So see, this little bristle is nice because you see it puts this color on, but it puts it on really fractured, especially if I you know, this is, you know, when you make an angle brush like this, you know, this is called the heel, that's called the toe. And I don't use angle brushes, but they're kind of fun to draw with like this, and there's a lot of fantastic artists that use them. But you know, you can draw pretty easy with them, sketch pretty easy. And but I like that, especially on the bristles, I can use different angles of it like this and create different highs and lows and use that to help some of my sketching and stuff around that I do. And yeah, it works. Let's take a little bit of the light yellow, burnt sienna, white. We'll do just a few marks here on up here by the onto the saddle. Just a few lines to give a little architectural look to the saddle. And again, I'm not going to dive into the structure here of the saddle. Just some architectural look to it. Okay, and maybe a little darker here for girth strap here. We'll push that in just a little darker. And just give the idea of it there. Here we go. And maybe you can put in like that a shadow to the edge, and maybe I used to have ties that drug down. Well, I still have the saddle. It was my grandfather's, but ties that came down and hung down a bit, so you can just give an idea of those. I want to add another little touch of light right in here. Just zoom here. There we go. And I use, you know, more of a, so if I want to go find, I use more of a, just like you're sketching it again. You know, that's what I'm really kind of doing here with the saddle, is just using a slightly different color now than what I did originally here, and sketching it. Let's put in that angle there. There we go. And there's all kinds of other little things, especially my saddle's got a lot of, I have quite a few saddles, but it has some decorations and stuff, and I'm just going to, and tooling and stuff on it, and I'm just going to just indicate it, not make anything here. Just indicate that something's going on there. Just like with, you know, the yellow slicker. And I told the story of riding and stuff all the time with the yellow slicker. Of course, we were up on the far northern California coast, up near the redwoods, and it was always raining. And so you usually always had one of these, you know, strapped to the back of your saddle here, because it was always going to rain at some point in time. It's just take a little bit of shadow here, just make like a, you know, just an impressionistic here of one folded over. You could fold it over, tie it, put a little tie, you can do all kinds of fun stuff, but yeah, we'll just do that just to say, those of you that ride, you'll know what that is. Yeah. There. Let's put a little lighter hit right up at the top up there. There we go. And You can group it down and run like a little tie over it. Just fun, you know. Most of this is I do it real quick, and I like it better when I do it real quick. So see, I put on the line too heavy, and I just paint it back out with a little bit of yellow, you know. And just grab some of that. Just add some variation here, fold it over and stuff. Just some variation to it there. So, and again, it's very quick, right? It's very quick, not perfect or precise. This isn't a painting about the saddle. This is a painting about the reflection and, you know, him sitting there with his dog and enjoying the day. There. And just a little light color. So see, I love the bristle in that I can do stuff really, really loose. Now you can take some of this light and just hit the edges of this if you want a little more contrast or detail or something to it. You can do that, okay? I just hit the edges just slightly there. Taking some of this stuff down, and again, matching. I'm a real big advocate for matching some of your techniques. So, you know, we should use this bristle down a bit through the painting here in just a few areas. And you know, a few marks, tying some of the looks together, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm a big advocate for that. Don't just add a brush and not use it pretty much everywhere. So I'll use that around a bit. It'd look good out here into some of the rocks and stuff. I did use a little bristle right there on the rocks, so I don't need to do too much there. But I might lighten all of that back up too. Let's put a touch more light back there. And a bit more burnt sienna with that. There we go. It comes forward just a bit more. And that'll dry down too, so it's kind of hard sometimes. So that gives you a good idea. See, I like that. Just very, very simplistic. Let's go back. Now, the stirrups I write in were wood and metal. I have them both. But to get a metal one, you want to go to more of a gray. So we'll give the idea of some gray, some darker blue, maybe a bit of red with the blue instead of the burnt sienna here. That gives it a little bit more of a metally look to it here. And some shadow here. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Let's get some of this light though, right here. There. So, and again, it's just you know, there's a great way to describe this, what you do. You have impressionism, right? And then the new word, well, it's been around for about 10 years, a little bit more than that, is representational. So you paint something that represents something, kind of looks like it, but it's not an exact copy. It has a freer edge to it. And that's what several artists have gone to using that term now to describe what it is or how they paint. They're more representational artists. And I kind of like that term for some reason. I just like that. So I don't paint exact what something is. I just use a real quick mark, you know, to kind of say, okay, here it is. But it's not an exact painting of it, if that makes sense. Okay, it's not exactly what it looks like. So let's just push that in there. So a little bit of that. So I will come close to what the stirrup stuff here looks like, but I'm not going to sit there and wind myself up trying to make a perfect one, because then my painting becomes too stiff, if that makes sense. I'm just going to give a quick representation of it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to my small little detail brush that I use, and I'm just going to pull that down. I like that. Just a mark. See how much it's so much more casual. So I'll go to a smaller brush and just pull the mark, and that does its job pretty well. Let's add a bit of the yellow here to some of that. Maybe let's get that a little. It feels a touch too much the same, so I'm just gonna add a mark here of some dark color right against it as well. Just burnt sienna. There we go. That looks pretty good. And burnt sienna and blue, if you need to do any kind of shadows or darks or stuff, you know, that can help. I need to widen this. I got this in a little triangle now that I see my eye starts to focus down a bit. So that should come right about there. And I start to see what could possibly be off. And I start to fix it. And hopefully, before the end of the painting, I find everything. Yeah, there we go. See, that just builds up and looks a little bit better, a little more stuff going on. You know, I mean, I had danglies and stuff hanging around all over off of mine. Little ties and dangles and all this kind of stuff, you know, hanging down. So I can just put a few, like, indications of that. And sometimes I rode him with a chest strap, which was nice, which would come right down off of here, off of a buckle. I think I'll add one in there. So it'd come right off of here. So, and we'll do it again. Just very simplistically here. So this, let's pull from the right up here like this, right down to there. And maybe a little bit of light there too, right up like that. That looks pretty good. And of course it's perfectly positioned to be hidden by his head there. But that gives you some of this. Now, and I was looking at it here, and I went, he has no tail. I mean, this is what I say. You know, I approach it sometimes different than a lot of people. It's like, oh, there are a few paintings I forgot to give them a tail towards the end. And I think at one time I started to have a tail in here, and then I forgot it because I remember talking about his tail. It used to take me a long time to clean his tail out whenever we would, especially when we rode parades and stuff, or whenever I was going to go out and quite a bit of public and ride patrol or something like that with him in public. I always liked him to have his nice clean tail, which always took a while. But let's take some darker color, and then we'll just whisper on a little bit of light here. And this is what that bristle does. So I just angled this bristle, and I don't want to pull too many times. So, and sometimes it's like I really want to put some light right down here. I'll use the flat of the brush and pull like this. And then that, you know, gives you a nice look to the tail. Just a real simple tail. I can go a little heavier, like right in here. There we go. And if it's too heavy or something, you know, for him, then you can take it back when we put the prairie in. And sometimes it, you know, you can add that prairie later. Let's and this just came to me too, because I do have his feet so much the same here. So let's shorten this one back just a touch. It's easy to do, you know. Take a bit of that dark. And we give just the impression, because we're going to put a lot of grasses in here, and these grasses might end up covering this up. But let's make him resting right here by his fetlock. We'll turn this back, okay? And mine did this all the time, especially at rest. Bent one leg right there back slightly, okay? And then give him, stands on the point of his hoof there, like that. And we'll push this one back just a bit, there. Guys are always like this. He was always kind of resting foot back just a bit, there. Yeah, that's working. Little work on it still, but that's getting the idea that I want to have there. Okay, and so as like I say, I don't worry about all of the stuff. It's as I'm coming through towards the end of the painting, and I start looking at some of the drawing a little bit more, and how I am. His anatomy, stuff like that, and start looking at. Let's put a little shadow there on that right there before we pull a little more light there, like that. That's pretty good. There. Yep. A little bit of that brushwork on him with that bristle. So I carry that look, that common look. That's pretty good. So you see it, that even adding, like for me, even adding those details to the saddle and, to his bridle and stuff, just really add a lot to the painting here. And a little bit of blue here, but it's, I'm not going to go super detailed in any of that there, but you can see, and in actuality this brown would come right over the top of that. But you can ruin a painting, the casual nature, the expressive nature of the painting, by painting it too perfect. Does that make sense? So, I just want to make quick marks here and get out, right? I mean, I could, now that we have that dark, remember all the way back to the beginning, I said I'll put this in, but how actual dark it will be when we leave, I don't know until I get the guy and his hat on. So I can have a little more dark on the back of that saddle there. And I love when I do that, to leave that dark area with a stroke of warmer burnt sienna. It just works. It works in the painting. So there you go. There's that. Now, okay, we've got to look to some of our grasses and some of the stuff that's going on here with all of these cows. And I really, really like this one. So I have a lot of them. See, I thought, ooh, I even printed off this one right here. I thought that cow maybe right here looking back, and that's what you can do, is print off, and that's looking back, but then that destroys the painting or the feeling going out completely off to the left side. What are they looking at? And this guy's looking back. So, but I do a guy turned back like that on several other paintings, and so, but it's kind of nice, it follows one of the things is, the Dutch used to design this way. They would have pieces of cardboard that they'd have simple shapes put on, and they would arrange them like a puzzle, arrange it around to see, ooh, maybe, do you want to do that one right there? So should you do one, bigger one like that right there? I mean, he would look great, wouldn't he? I mean, what do you do? Or do you like it this way with it going right off the edge? you know? Or do you take a little bit more of a mass of them and, of course, turn them around the other side? You could put something like these guys back up over there, you know. Find some photos, put them out, print them off, move them around your design, and start to see, start to get an idea about, what you might want to do with that particular design. Lots of stuff you can do. Let's take a little burnt sienna and some of this yellow. The yellow I used up here was a little two-tone. I like this just a bit when I put that brush mark on there. I like that yellow just a bit more vibrant there. So I'll grab a little Diarylide, a little bit of light color here, and we'll hit some of the lights here. I will probably, let's just drag this up. There we go. And I'll take a bit of the dark right up into that to help soften that edge so it doesn't look like that yellow I just applied is stuck on the top. There we go. That's better. So I'll do that a lot. Work the light, work the dark, work those edges. Edges. Those are the most important things. Okay, so we want to add some more of the blue and a few other things in here. But the majority of my time this morning is going to be taken up by working some of this grass. And I really like what's in this one is you see the spots of green and some of the grasses and stuff. And that's really what the prairie looks like out there right now. Or even here where you get spots of the green like with me there and the bushes and stuff. And of course I got the pine trees back there and the fir trees. But I want to start adding some of that. So a couple of different ways. You can do it dry. You can do it wet, wet into wet. And I'm going to do it mostly dry. I'm going to work color, and I'll work this back and forth several times. First, I'm going to take my yellows and my greens and my burnt siennas, and I'm going to come through here slightly darker than what I had before and try to break up some of this area here. And this will become shadows underneath what I am doing here. And so we'll add some of that right along here. See, I'm using a 3/4 inch fusion brush. And you see, this is what happens. This is why. So you see me dragging it, right? You see me pulling it this way. And what it does is it fractures the color over the surface. Do you see that? So I get some of these marks, and that's what I'm looking for. If you don't want those marks, you use more of the tip of the brush, and you can smooth it all out. But I don't want to do that too much. I want to fracture some of this. Okay? And so basically what we're doing is we're going to add some of the green colors that we see. We're going to add it through the painting here. Now, like I said, good linear perspective. As I go back, I'll flip over to the chisel of the brush. And so the chisel of the brush will put it in a thinner line. And that thinner line becomes more atmospheric perspective, if that makes sense. So my lines get a little thinner here, a little bit back up over here, and a little wider. So what the viewer reads the wide line, and it's like a fence post as you're drawing linear perspective and stuff. Those of you that seen some of the linear perspective lessons that I've given, as it goes further back and it gets thinner and thinner and disappears, that's, so back here it'll get a little thinner and a little thinner, maybe a bit of it right there, and we'll soften that out a bit and it'll start to disappear, and it helps you with your perspective, getting your perspective correctly on it. Yeah. Let's put just a little bit wider right up here. There. Yeah, that'll be good. And some of this needs to soften. And you can take a paper towel with a little bit of water and pull through to soften some of it. I like to do that through, right? And but this is just the beginning, you know. So don't, you know, I'm painting right now for color, and you know, a little bit of linear perspective, but mostly for color. Get some of that color that I want to see in the painting. Let's thin this out a bit. Some of that color that I want to see in the painting through here. Just like that. Just like that. So we'll see some of that. I don't want to stop at that dog. That makes too much of a tangent line. So we'll pull through there like that. Just like that. That'll be good. Maybe a thin wash right up to him there. Okay. So now we've got some of that beautiful green going in. Now don't forget, whatever you do up there, carry some of it into your reflection, right? We'll carry and we'll pull down and move some of this. Now, what I showed you before is when you work a reflection like this, you can also, you know, put color on and pull down. That keeps the reflection. Pulling down keeps the reflection going. So before you leave, put a little extender in it if you need to and pull down, and that'll keep the reflection going the way we want. But I want to put some more stones and stuff up here in this area. I'll show you that as we get in, as we keep going. Let's go back to some of our light color, some of this color, some of the light. Now, all kinds of ways to start to simulate some of the grasses, but we want to work some of this. I'm going to work lights and darks and back and forth. Now back here, I want these grasses and stuff to start to soften off, which means I'm doing this, using the flat of the brush, sometimes pushing up a little bit. Just push up a little bit to make it look like it's something growing there, right? Okay, and if I take out that too much, I'll wipe it back, but I'll just redraw it again. There, like that, okay. Softer back here. Softer, right in between our cows. We'll put a bit there. And some of this right up over some of these cows, these little, I was visioning all around the ranches right now. There's little ones all over. They're a couple months old, but they're all over. And they're laying down out there. And so I thought, oh, I should make a few laying down around there. Like that. Okay. And I also want to, so I have some of that. Let's keep this going. A little more yellow, a little more color, a little more powerful up here into the front, and more vertical with some of these marks. Because up front up here, you're going to start to see the grasses. But it's going to take a few times, and I'm going to go, and you've seen me in I have all kinds of videos out there where I show you how I paint the prairie all different kinds of ways, and I use light and dark back and forth. I don't just do it one way, I do it several ways, depending on, you know, how much detail I want into the grasses. So we'll push some of this in. Don't forget to add some of that right into some of this area, some of the greens. But I use as big a brush for as long as I can, and then I'll go to some smaller brushes or some other brushes to add some of the detail work. And this is what I'm going to spend the majority, probably a good at least 30 minutes to an hour just doing stuff like this as I build the ground around here, carrying some of this in here. I'm just going to do this back and forth. And There's other kinds of brushes. I'll show this maybe when we get back, but there's other kinds of brushes. I use this. This is an old bristle filbert that we made. I know my daughter who runs our brush company just goes, "I'd love it when you do that, Dad." So I took this old bristle filbert and I just bend it out. They're not an expensive brush, so they're fun for you to play with and do some of this stuff. But when I get back up to the very end of it, and sometimes I do it right now and I'll go back and put more, but I use these to make some of the individual hairs or the individual grasses that you will see around the front of the and I just roll the brush a bit and let some of the color fade off, and then I'll go back and pick up a little bit more, add some of that into the grass there or into the reflection and stuff. So that works really, really nice. But I'm going to put quite a bit of that in as I build that. The other thing that I'm going to do, because I got to do this, let's see, I've already spent 45 minutes here on this. Time goes by. So the other thing I'm going to do, see, that's just too much of a flat line right there. So I'm going to add, and you've seen me, there's a video that I did there where I, one viewer asked me to paint the bottom or more transparent water where you're looking down through it. I want to add a little bit there, but there's some videos in there that I do that in the landscape where you'll see the front. And I even did it on one kind of a snow scene too, where, how do you paint the bottom so you'll see some of that transparent water and stuff. And so I want to do a little bit of that in here, and I'm going to use those particular techniques to show some of that. I'll push some of this back out. And so you've got to, when you're doing something like that, so I'm going to kind of make it transparent right here. And I start by putting in the shadow of everything, and then I start the shadows of the rocks or any other kinds of rocks. So right back here, you're going to have the shadow. These rocks continue on underneath the water, see? So they're underneath the water, so you got to continue that. They don't just stop at the water. They're underneath the water, so I've got to continue that. And I make a gray and stuff that is right about or slightly darker than the value that I see there in that rock. And I'll push that color in there. And so it starts the transparency of it. It's not a reflection, it's transparent. So, and I want to make like right up through here, I want to put a rock that's coming out of the water here. So the water is just kind of bending around here and kind of flowed right in between there. So, and this is, take this here. So I got a little bit of work that I want to do to bring up some additional interest here. So I'll do that, and then I'll go slightly darker here. This represents this rock under the water here, right? There we go. Under the water. And then you can put in the bottom shadow, where the bottom is. More little rocks and pebbles, and sometimes I come in here with, and you can see the video, but I just start tapping around because these are shadows of the, of other rocks under the water, slightly darker, so, and you kind of model up the background or bottom of it there, so you'll see some of this transparent, and then you can it can come into this reflection, if that makes sense. So I'll do this, and then the reflection is going to take over up on top of it, but we have to put that reflection up on top. So I'll take some of this grass color and just let it fade off into that right there. So the reflection starts to sit up on top here. There we go. And I'll add some of that. that I see there. And if I get too much, like I just did, I'll paint it out. A little more burnt sienna. Most of it, when that reflection, when you're painting that reflection, it's just up and down movement. Does that make sense? But so I can take this grass color, like right here, and remember I said do that little wiggly line here. So it's almost like the little light, that the shimmers that you see up on top. So I'll push some of that in, right in here, right in there, a little bit there. Okay, and we'll come and I'll do this also with a light little line right along the edge of the rocks and the water there, and a little bit of shadow. Fun little stuff. You've seen me do this a lot on the channel before, so I won't spend tremendous amount of time on it, but yeah, you can use this to give some of the underwater colors here. Shadow back. And paint. Sometimes I can't breathe and paint at the same time. Yes. So we'll take some of this nice shadow. The big thing is don't paint it too many times that you blend it. Does that make sense? I don't want anything blended in there. So we'll take just a bit of this shadow, take out just a touch of that light, leave just a touch of that light, paint the shadow of the rock here, underneath the water, here. There we go. And it's that white, that light line, and of course the reflection pulls down. So as you get towards done there, now this brush has just a bit of extender in it. I just put it in so it lightly pulls through, and that's what I'm looking for, that light pulling through some of that. And so I'll paint right down in here the idea of other rocks and stuff, and maybe this one lighter again, or just the idea of it under the water. So you have a reflection, and the reflection and the rock underneath the water are very close to each other. Does that make sense? They're very close. This one will have a bit of a shadow right there towards the bottom. There we go. Yeah, so now, see, I start to add some of this, and what I'm looking for is just some variation to the shoreline here. So I want to really stop this light of this rock right in kind of a line with, or exact line, really, of where my water line is. Here. There we go, like that. And maybe a little more burnt sienna blue here. Push the back shadow of that rock in, right? Burnt sienna blue here, push the back shadow of this rock. A little more light. So it gives you an idea here, right? Here we go. Let's add some of that shadow. And then I'll pull it a little light color, and I'll pull this light right down to where that water's edge is. And I'll leave that right along the water's edge. And they're illusions, right? It's optical illusions. Let's put a little more of an edge, maybe a bit of a rock right there. Got all my rocks have all these real rounded heads to them, and I should change some of that. They're all really rounded there. But so that's getting it. A little more work and I'll get there. But it gives you an idea. So what you're looking at is like rocks under the water and stuff. And so I have a lot of videos, landscape videos of me painting rocks under the water line, tapping in. So I could take a kind of a darker little gray right in here and just add like little marks like this, and they will look like rocks sitting underneath the water. Does that make sense? Little bits until the reflection here takes over. So all of that movement underneath there, you see. And sometimes to really help with that reflection, like I'm pulling down here, okay? And it's hard when you don't have a photo, so you have to go off your memory. But I will pull some of this light that will be our grasses, and I'll push some of this down. Maybe that picks up right here. Okay, but I've got this undulating line there, and I'm going to pull this all down like that, and then across a couple times to blur it out, and I'll leave that undulation reflection. So that's the reflection taking over right in here, if that makes sense. And boom, we'll push some of that. That's the reflection of some of the grasses and stuff. And then don't forget to add some of that colors and those things right in here. So I'm going to build the grass before I get too carried away here. I'll build the grass and then I'll come back and add. I'm going to add some additional rocks and shadows and stuff right in through here. I want to add some grasses and stuff up in here that will break some of this angle of my rocks and stuff there. So I'll do that just by doing that. And in some places I'm going to come in and focus some real darks, like maybe so I'll come back and put the grasses, and you'll see me do this in other videos, okay? I show you exactly how I paint the prairies, and I'll paint back and forth like that, put it going between grass and shadows and ground, brown ground lines here until I get, so I might put that that ground in there, might come back and hit a few grasses in like that, and then come back one more time with some ground and put in a few strong horizontals that will take out a little bit of that grass and set the ground back in place there as well. Does that make sense? So I worked like that back and forth a bit until I get the look that looks pretty good. I get the look, the soft little look that I want to have, and it's pretty nice. Let's put sometimes a little bit of extender with it, and they'll pull fine little grasses here. See a few of them right up in front of him, and break the line of that brown we had with just a few grasses, but leave that brown so that you get the idea of ground. Does that make sense? So, and look at your photos. Just really look at them and start to see. And then we're going to put some different colors. Like I might come back in there right with a bit of green and yellow here. Just a real nice, brighter green and yellow. And put some of that green right in there. Because we're right by the water. It should be a little green, right? Put some of that green right in there. Add so much green and yellow there. Don't forget to add a bit of that in here. And then I'll reset the line there. So, yeah. So we get this nice interest going back and forth and through here. So I'm going to do this. And, almost lunch. And I'm going to do this and set this in. I'm going to work on this about a half hour, 30 minutes to 40, maybe an hour, setting some of the grasses in here and just have a really good time painting it back and forth, because this really sets the scene of what I want in this scene. Don't forget to do in here. Break up some of those areas there, okay? And it kind of sets the scene. I kind of like it all back through there. I'm going to concentrate right in through here. And then we'll come back take a look at any kind of finishing stuff together, okay? But this is what I do. And like I say, I have lots of other videos. Go over and watch some of those others. I go really in depth on how I paint some of this stuff. But anyway, okay? All right. I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Hi everyone, welcome back to the studio. Well, okay, so what I did is I actually decided not to do too much. I just whispered in a little bit of green, put in a few of the hairs of with the brush here for the grasses of yellow oxide and white. Not too much actually down. I did lighten just a couple of these rocks again and set some of the stuff. Overall, I want to keep it kind of simplistic. I like the color movement that's in here. But I do want to pull down some blues. I feel into the painting, I love the warm cool. That's one of the things I wanted to accomplish. But I do want to put some more of these blues in here and maybe hit a secondary highlight here. I just think that, you know, I like that shadow that's falling across his face down to this area here. And maybe a little bit of a shadow down there might be kind of nice. You know, you can revisit highlights and stuff like that through here after you get some of this stuff on. But I think overall, I'm pretty happy with it overall. But just a little bit of that sky blue. Now, that original blue we used was a violet. So let's go into some of that. Here, a little bit of that blue violet. We'll get that going here. Like I say with everything, doesn't have to be exactly the same. That's just a little too much violet. So I just take off and I just go up here until I start to find it. And I want to use some good paint with it as well. Yeah, that's going to be pretty close to it right in there. I want to use a goodly amount of paint. And so I come back down through here and I just push in some of that and let this drift ever so into the rest of the paint and pull down. You could use that, put on a lot of paint, and then when you pull down with that, you know, bigger brush, which I just had here. I have another one, so I'll use it. But I put a little bit of extender in my big brush, and then I'll pull down here. You can pull up, pull down. Don't go too much, you'll blend it too much, but just let some of that go through the painting there. And I think that carries that back down through here, and I think that's what I want. And like I said, you know, sometimes we have to just kind of play with what nature shows. Even though this reflection would not show this, I'm doing it anyway, because I think people would expect to see some of it. And we'll let some of that just flip up here into, you know, you can use this light blue like this as other types of reflections in the water line. Let me show you that here. Okay, so I'll set my soft brush here. Here's the one I was looking for. And we'll clean that out, and I'll use it a light blue, a little more light, a little more white here, but I do want it kind of blue. And you know, whenever we use it, you have the shines and shimmers that you know you can get. Well, let's see. First, I want to put a little more light of that horse in there too. But you can put this on as shines and little shimmers, just a real light little blue through the water here, and just a hint of the blue. And sometimes we will tap them around, pull these, and you know, see a little blue. You know, this is what this is just water, the angle, just and we don't see any. I don't see any in the reflections, but that doesn't mean you can't add them, and they add so much to the painting, especially if you break across, you know, a bit of the reflection, just lightly across the reflection there, and where you see some, just adding those. Those are all little things, but you know, when you're down to the point of here, how much you're gonna do, you know, into it. I like the painting. I like it as it is, and it's kind of what I envisioned here. Changed a few things, but it's kind of what I envisioned here. I'll just leave a little bit of blue here, just to say, oh, we did that. Maybe that's too much, so we'll take just a bit of that out. Little bit of our yellows and stuff. Take just a bit of that out. So there we go. Yeah, kind of like that. Just a bit of it, just a reflection of it, just a few touches. But that's up to you. That's your call. Okay, that's the artist call. This is what you finally figured out, just how much you want to add. And this is this is the one thing, for years and years and years ago, probably 35 years ago, a wonderful artist told me that something that I remember all my life here as an artist, and she says, sometimes you have to alter nature to make a more harmonious painting. And I've learned over the years, sometimes you have to alter nature to make a more believable painting. So there's a lot of like beautiful sky cloudscapes we get around here in Nebraska. And it's like I tell some of my students and my friends, I said, I can't paint those. I love them, but I can't paint them because you would never believe that would happen. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it becomes almost unpaintable. We'll just break up just some of this. I like that light, the dark, a little bit of green. Now, so the sky color that I put in here, take some of that and just kind of smoosh it out. Some of you can add a little light shimmer to it, like just almost your white. That's what you leave for your little sparkles, the little sunlit sparkles and stuff that you would have around. So you'd have a few of those around. But this blue, this blue becomes very important because, like I said, I used it here on Quasar. I'm going to use some of this blue as a lighter secondary color right back in here on his shirt. So again, that carried, so that's just, and see, it just puts a little bit, I still get that feeling of shadow, but I get a little more color. And then I'll use that as an intermediate halftone on this side of the shirt. Just little bits of it, because we've already got most of this done. So I just want a few touches of it here. And it carries that commonality through the painting. Maybe a touch or so on a rock. Okay, on the back edge of a rock. Somewhere near those shadows and stuff. So it carries that through. And it's adding this calming, cooler tone. So we pick out a few areas. Now, sometimes I don't know, how much of this I'm going to do. This is where sometimes I will sit down and maybe put the painting away for a day or two and see. Maybe even drop it into its frame and take it into where I think I'm going to hang it and then decide. So, this is not something that has to be done later. You should try to do it in a few days because, let me tell you, you're going to change as an artist. So here comes a little bit of blue on our dog here, which I like. That's too much, so we'll just back that out with a little blue burnt sienna here. Get some burnt sienna in there. Just back that out just a bit, okay? Boy, that darker blue in him really gets that. But little touches, so, very soft little touches back here on your cows. A few of them right through some of these cows. Just little touches here. Yes, that works. But look to your rocks. You could have some into the ground. Just little touches of it. There. That's pretty good. But you don't need to get carried away either. Remember, I had touched a little bit right up here onto his hat. I liked that little spark there. Some artists are brave enough to do it up here onto his face. I normally am not. There's a little. Yeah, and maybe a touch back up over here. There, that's, oh yeah, that looks good. Maybe a touch darker, some more burnt sienna, so it's not quite as powerful. A little touch there. Yeah, see, that just adds, and it adds that cool contrast kind of look to the painting, that and that spark, you know, that spark that we try to get. So that looks pretty good through there. So now I had added, you know, the other day when I was filming this, in between all of our thunderstorms and everything. That's the other thing that bothers me about this painting. A painting like this I try to do in a day. And this one has been done over the course of this week as I filmed around thunderstorms and grandkids and everything else. And so what happens when you delay a painting like that, guy, or at least for me, when I delay a painting like that, my spontaneity tends to decrease onto the painting, and I start to question some of the stuff I do over and over and over again. And I lose my original, what I say is my original thought process of the painting. And so I tend to play a little bit more. And so that's why moving fast, giving yourself time limits and everything like that is very, very important. You know, I can come back through here now and I can look at some areas and stuff that I want to do, you know, that maybe I want to change something or whatever, you know, and I'll look through all of my photos here and try to get some, you know, some other ideas and stuff like that that I might be able to have, you know. And I go to the masters. I go to photos of the masters, and I say, oh, well, that's a pretty good idea. Because you know, if you're over a long time, what happens is you lose some of that energy, that creative energy. And so I try to re-spark it by just sitting down in the morning and, you know, maybe print off a couple of photos of the masters like I did and bring them in and look at them and just sit down and say, ooh, that's a pretty good idea. Maybe I can add something like that to my painting. And that you try to find that original spark that you lost because it's been so long. Does that make sense? That happens to me. And so I do. And then when I realize that happens to me, that's when I go print off a few more photos, try a few more things. And it always seems to work. But overall, I like the painting of this. Yeah, I think, you know, I've questioned here, should I add another little rock ridge here? This might be kind of neat. Or, you know, if not, maybe I need to add just a few more little horizontal lines or something through here that is kind of like the feeling of rocks here, but carries some of that color. Do you see what I'm saying? You know, yeah, and you can do things like that. Linear perspective things that are so nice that might help you out. And so I can carry even just a line of some of this through here and make it look like just some rocks going through. Breaking up just adds a little more interest. So, yeah. But there's lots of kinds of things. Really a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed this particular look at it. And, you know, if you have any kinds of questions or anything, you know, please ask them below, you know, and some of the other elements, all of the elements that I have here in this is done in lots of other videos, lots of other Western videos, and watch those videos for those ideas. And like I said, and print off some of the photos of the masters to help you give a, you know, how do they increase the folds in an arm or right back in this area. I keep fighting, should I leave this edge of the chaps there that soft, or should I bring something, or should I bring it back up a bit, you know, to add a little bit more. And so you know, sometimes I will just go to the masters to see, oh, well, what do they do? And that helps. And I think I am just about to take a nice, confident, light stroke. Just boom. See that? sometimes, yeah, see, that just pops that, right? That's what you lose. That's what I'm talking about. That confidence of that stroke, that's what you lose if you've taken a long time to paint it. Does that make sense? So I'm going to come in here even more. Boom. And hit that. And maybe hit an edge of that right over here like the light hits up over there. Set an intermediate or a transitional tone right there. And then put in a little more powerful burnt sienna. Remember, we'd started this whole plane right over here, burnt sienna and some of the dark, and that slowly kind of changed over time. But I do like that. There, we'll leave that in, just like that. Yeah, that pops that out. See, boom, there he is. You know, maybe, and that's what I talk about. See, at least I do, guys, is I'll lose some of my confidence over a time if I've taken too long to paint on it. I can find it again, but I'll lose that. See, the spontaneity. Now it's coming back again a little bit. Yeah, where I can just do some of this stuff, which I like. And we take that color, we'll touch it over here, carry the color. Don't isolate it. A little bit up over here. There we go. Overall, I like it. And I think there's a lot of depth. I really wanted to have a lot of depth back through here, and I like that. You know, you bring those edges a little bit more here, a little softer down over here, so you can soften some receding areas, you know. And overall, that just kind of goes back. I might build one or two more little rocks right here to push a different plane back there, but that'll come. That'll come after I turn off the cameras and I sit down with a cup of coffee and I look at it for a little while, okay? So I hope you enjoy it. I would love to do some big paintings like this with you guys, some big stories here with this like you guys. And one of the reasons why I don't do it, let me talk to you for just a second. One reason why I don't do it too many often, because it destroys our channel. And because not that many people stick all the way through all the videos. So like on this one, I'm putting up 4 videos showing you a lot of things during this entire painting of it. And only a few hundred will stay with it. And the way YouTube works, that is, if I do the videos like that and only a couple hundred watch those last remaining videos, that slower video, YouTube analytics look at it and go, oh, nope, he's putting out some bad videos, and they slow down my whole channel. And it's just because people don't want to watch the whole thing. Does that make sense? That's one reason why I don't, and one reason why I usually take big, longer ones into the online classroom and stuff. But I'd like to figure out a way we can get around that. So if you have ideas, leave comments below. I would love to film longer ones and do that. But you know, this kind of anytime we get over an hour and a half or so, or even an hour, they start to, on our analytics, it starts to slow way down that video, and then that hurts the overall channel, the health of the channel. So keep watching, keep commenting, like them and share them for us. That would be great. You know, it's how many videos it gets liked. So if you like what we do and you want to continue it, just watch all the video all the way through and like. That's all I can say, and we'll keep putting them out, okay? And you know, as much as we can with our channel, okay? Because I love sharing this and this story with you. So if you want, put another cow over here. I push these guys further back. You can bring them up closer, put them in larger right up in here. That's up to you, you know, and you know, but have a good time with it. Oh, and I should probably put in just a little more white right in here. Let me do that real quick, just so you see it. A little bit of white, a little dirty, a little bit of dirty, white, gray, little blue. Color of quasar just whispered in here. And because it just carries this color. Again, we're not worried about shape, not this far back in the painting. But we're worried about color. We paint for color. So we'll just put a little bit of that so you see his reflection the reflecting color. See, it just sets up a reflecting color for it. There you go. Fool the eye a little bit. You don't see those mountains and stuff in there because of the angle, but if you want, put them in there. Thanks very much, guys, for joining, and I'll film up some more. I think we're going to go to a big master floral next. Okay, that would be fun to show. Do that in a couple videos, and or maybe one big long one. Okay, so we'll do that next. I'll get that up probably by this weekend, right after 4th of July. Okay, thanks very much. See you on the next one.